The latest on China being China, except being China in the UK. Hong Kong protester was dragged into the Manchester Chinese consulate grounds and beaten up. Let me just see him there. A Hong Kong pro-democracy protester, democracy is cringe, but I suppose compared to China, was pulled into Chinese consulate grounds in Manchester on Sunday and beaten up. Unidentified men came out of the consulate and forced a man inside the compound before he escaped with the help of police and other demonstrators. The protester told the BBC, "They dragged me inside, they beat me up." The UK government called these reports extremely concerning. The consulate says protesters displayed an insulting portrait of China's president. I wonder what type of portrait they displayed. Maybe it was someone who really liked honey. The Foreign Office said it was urgently seeking clarity on the incident. Greater Manchester Police has launched an investigation. Speaking after the incident, the protester called Bob, I'm going to assume that's a fake name, told BBC Chinese that mainlanders, people from mainland China, as opposed to Hong Kong, had come out of the consulate and destroyed their posters. As we tried to stop them, they dragged me inside, they beat me up, he said, adding that he was then pulled out by the UK police. It's ridiculous, the attackers shouldn't have done that. We are supposed to have freedom to say whatever we want here in the UK. Oh, no, you don't. No, you don't. There are certain political opinions and certain political ideologies that are just outright banned. Anything you say that can cause offence, like, for example, those little posters you were showing, they could cause offence to people. Therefore, it's illegal. That's the way it works in Britain. Sorry. We're supposed to have freedom. Compared to China, however, we are fast approaching being just like China. After the incident, the crowd remained angry. Protesters shouted at the men from the consulate and the British police, arguing that they could have done more. Now, the problem with that is, I'm not sure how this works, right? So, take everything I'm about to say with a giant grain of salt. But I think that the location of any embassy or consulate is considered the soil of whatever nation it's in. So, for example, as soon as you cross the threshold into the Chinese consulate, technically you're in China. I think that's how it works. I don't know. I've absolutely no idea if that is how it works. But it seems that, and that is why the police wouldn't go in, because the police can't cross that border, as it were. They can't go in and stop that shit from happening. I think that's how it works. Don't quote me on that. I'll need to actually check. Consulate staff had previously asked the protesters to move to the opposite side of the street. There were 2 police officers at the protest, but several more appearing within minutes of the altercation beginning. They gathered at the gates of the compound, trying to break up the fighting and move protesters back. One police officer entered the consulate grounds and pulled the man who had been dragged inside back out, which I think he might not have actually been allowed to do. I don't know. At least 8 men, some of whom were wearing helmets and protective vests, then returned to the consulate building. The consulate is on UK soil but cannot be entered without consent, and I think that even applies to the police. I think. Reacting on Twitter, former Conservative leader Ian Duncan Smith said that the UK government should demand a full apology from the Chinese ambassador and that those involved should be sent back to China. Based. Based. Protests outside embassies and consulates in Britain often involve a few scuffles. Police are often on hand to keep the peace, but rarely do consular staff emerge on the street to pull down banners and posters. That has happened with the North Korean embassy. They even kicked off a big shit fit because someone had like a joke picture of Kim Jong-un in the window of their barber shop, which was just down the road. And even more rarely are protesters dragged through the gates and apparently beaten up. So it is not surprising that there are growing calls for the Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, to summon China's ambassador in Britain for an explanation. Labour's Foreign Affairs spokesman, David Lammy, he's probably like, China did nothing wrong. White people are evil. Said the alleged assault was unacceptable. The quashing of peaceful protests will never be tolerated on her streets, he said. This is from the same man that wants to ban any and all right-wing or conservative protest. David Lammy he's one of the key guys that's behind, see all the Section 127 offence laws, he's one of the key guys behind it that's been supporting it. So, peaceful protest will never be tolerated on our streets, even for the right wing, David. Even for the right wing, you should ask him. The police and the Home Office will investigate first and decide what action to take, if any, from a criminal justice point of view. As for the Foreign Office, it will have to decide whether to make any diplomatic response. Britain is, of course, a signatory to the Vienna Convention, which gives some diplomatic immunity to consular staff and their properties, but diplomats and their employees are still covered by UK law and could potentially be declared persona non grata by the British government. Like fucking John Wick. The demonstrators were protesting as the ruling Communist Party Congress began in Beijing. President Xi Jinping, Winnie the Flu, who is set to secure a third term in power, oh, man, goddamn, the voters must really like him. Said he had turned the situation in Hong Kong from chaos to governance, referring to China's suppression of pro-democracy protests there. A spokesperson for the consulate said that the protesters had hung an insulting portrait of the Chinese president at their main entrance. So fucking what? You fucking big baby. This would be intolerable and unacceptable for any diplomatic and consular mission of any country. Intolerable and unacceptable. What a picture, a fucking meme. Therefore, we condemn this deplorable act with strong indignation and firm opposition, the spokesperson added. China, man. A spokesperson said Greater Manchester Police was aware of the incident. Officers were present and responded immediately to defuse the situation. They said inquiries are ongoing at this time to understand the full circumstances. Downing Street said, "These reports are extremely concerning. I understand Greater Manchester Police responded immediately to the incident and I am conscious their inquiries are ongoing, so it would be inappropriate for me to comment beyond that," the Prime Minister's official spokesperson said. Now, the reason that these guys just came out of the consulate and did this is because that's how it's done in China. Like, they just go in and beat... Well, sorry, it's not done exactly like that in China. After the beating, he would have been dragged inside the building and then no one would have ever heard from him again. He would have been sent off to prison or a hospital where, oh no, you can't go visit him. He's very sick. You know, like, that's the way that they do it in China. But... the fact that these guys are in our fucking country, I don't give a fuck about that little fake fucking border that you've got out there. Like, you came here and you assaulted someone. You should be arrested for it. You violated somebody's rights. That person had a right to freedom of speech. You violated that right by assaulting them. So, you should bear the consequences of what you do. However, we are such big monumental fucking shite bags when it comes to China that absolutely nothing will be done. Also... I mean, technically, our country violates human speech rights all the fucking time. We violate speech rights fucking constantly. I mean, Jesus Christ, if it wasn't... I mean, it's the reason I've got so much content on this channel. Right? So any country that's like, oh, it's absolutely terrible, freedom of speech, fuck off. Like, you don't believe in freedom of speech. Right? No current government actually fucking does. Right? Even America, when it comes to speech, is like one of the freest, but, you know, even they'll still completely fuck you over for fucking stuff you said. Yeah. No governments care about freedom of speech, which means if we want freedom of speech, we have to get rid of fucking governments.